Okay, we're back. It's January 2nd, and we'll do a brief video about the new Thundercat T2. I've been asked several questions, and we'll try and get to all of them and get to a few tips just quickly. Alright, one of the first things that you might notice in building it is the guide pin will snap in more firmly than it did before. It still has a nice float front to back. I would try it loose before gluing it in. On some tracks that can work quite well. After that, obviously they're molded in red, as I said. The wheelbases are the same. However, the overall width, the chassis rails, are a bit wider, and the traction magnets are slightly taller and wider, so they have more mass than the T1. And the motor magnets have a slightly different shape than the T1, and we've actually reduced the mass on those somewhat. So overall, and of course the bulkheads have been lightened substantially with 4 holes and removing a good bit of material from the top of both bulkheads. So all combined, the overall car comes in at 0.3 of a gram lighter than the T1 Superstock. And all of the chassis will come, they're pre-boiled. And the reason is it toughens the plastic. It puts moisture back into the material. So we should see a stronger part. That combined with some technical changes to the tool itself, and this is a new tool, should combine for a stronger part. So we've got some other subtle differences in the car. As I said, it's been fully redesigned. Here's a side view. All the same assembly. You can still use the same motor assembly tool. I'll get these on the website as soon as I get a chance to take some photographs. And I do have plenty of those available. It's a very handy tool. Same tip on the clips to loosen them up somewhat so they don't fit too snugly. And other than that, one thing that I can't stress enough is, guys, you definitely do not want to use anything heavier than 9/1000 pickup springs in these Superstocks. You'll just be shooting yourself in the foot if you do. I know our pal Slot King likes to push the heavy springs because he thinks he's getting more power to the motor, and I can tell you that is just, it just has no basis in fact. These cars only draw about 1/4 of an amp, and with a double 9,000 spring you've got plenty of current capability there. So I've been asked, what's the difference? If you rebend a heavy spring to produce about the same tension as the lighter spring, what's the difference? Well, there's a big difference, and it's called the spring rate. You don't cut down truck springs and put them in your Volkswagen, and that's essentially what you're doing here. If you try and put 11th thou springs in a Superstock, you have to bend them so precisely to get the desired tension at a very specific point in the shoe's travel where it's contacting the rail. It's you're just making it extremely difficult on yourself. If you're getting more power out of 11,000 springs, it's because the shoes simply are contacting the rail, most likely heavier in the rear, and that's where any additional power is coming from. I've run in several Superstock races. Tom Shepard has won the Hopper Nats 2007 and 2006. He was not lacking for any horsepower. Neither have I in any of the Superstock races I've won. And we've also, without exception, used the elf bushings, which is another ill-advised tip to avoid them, due to the allegation that they swell. Again, no basis in fact. I know what the material is. Others do not have a clue. They don't know what the specs are. There is no chemical that we use in these cars that will have the slightest effect on the elf bushings. Not in the slightest. So you could soak them in much harsher chemicals, and the properties simply will not change, period. So if you want the best setup, 9th pickup springs, elf bushings. I know some people they get an idea in their head on something just because it's different than what's recommended. They want to believe it's better, and that's the key point, is they want to believe it's better. I would challenge anybody to make a main at a major race with 11th hour shoe springs in their Superstock, and I'm quite certain there'll be a lot of these showing up in more mains than ever. So other differences, the magnets are a better fit in the chassis, slightly modified magnet geometry, and what else? What other questions was I asked? I think we've covered just about all of them. The back end the shape has changed somewhat. It's a bit different than the T1, but still plenty of room for axle retainers. That's not a problem. The parts really are not interchangeable. Obviously you can't put the bigger tractions in a T1, and the motor magnets are also, I wouldn't advise changing the T1. Some of them may squeeze into the T2, but you'll probably find they'll be tight in the bulkheads. The bulkhead tabs are changed from the T1. So I'm watching the time here. What else? So the bulkheads, since they're wider, you don't want to use them in a T1. There's really no need to interchange parts. I would recommend running the car as it's been designed, and let it function the way it's been designed to function. So I think that's about it. We're getting close to the end here, so please be patient. The response has been just overwhelming so far, an absolute record number of views on the bulletin board since yesterday, and the emails and phone calls they're just piling up. So I've never had so much fun being a non-factor. That's it for tonight. We'll see you next time.